Good morning, dear friends. I am Dr. Mukesh Pareek, and today I am present with a lecture on cultural studies. Cultural studies is a very diverse and eclectic topic. It includes Marxism, New Historicism, feminism, queer theory, post-structuralism. When somebody starts talking about cultural studies, it is a very diverse topic. It includes so many things that is the reason I think that in our syllabus of NET exam, they have considered it worth giving a particular unit. Let us talk about the kind of questions they have been asking us in our NET exam. I have been appearing in this exam for last many years now and have been clearing it also. And I've come to know that Raymond Williams is the most prominent voice as per cultural studies are concerned. So I have decided to prepare a kind of series of lectures on cultural studies for the benefit of the NET students, so that writer after writer, they can know in depth the actual import of these writers, their writings, the name of the books, their publications, and the major ideas concerned related to our NET exam. So here I start. Raymond Williams. He was born in a village in 1921 in a close-knit rural working class community. So he learned values and social concerns there. Friends, it is important to notice here that he was brought up in a working class community, because later on in his major book Culture and Society, he has really talked about the kind of values which were undergoing a kind of change in the late capitalism in the Western society. So they can ask you a question related to this working class community, because I have seen kind of questions they have asked about certain poets, certain dramatists who did not belong to the aristocratic families, and those who came from the working class families. It is not a particular term we use here in India, but in Western countries, particularly in England, they have a tag on the writers sometimes, if he or she comes from a working class family or working class community. So Raymond Williams is that kind of writer. After grammar school, he won a scholarship and went to Trinity, Cambridge, but his studies got interrupted when he was called up for military service. Later in 1945, completed his degree and became a tutor in Workers' Education Association. So this is second point where they can ask us a question, because his teaching there in the Workers' Educational Association is again important for making his ideas or framing ideas in his mind, or this teaching there imparted him with a kind of insight which made him understand culture in a very nuanced way, which we study now. He set a task for himself of analyzing the idea of culture, as he noticed that culture as a term was used against democracy and socialism. Let me elaborate this point here, that in India also, let me explain first of all, without going into the depth of the definition of culture, what Raymond Williams has told us, that culture has 2 or 3 entries in dictionary. First of all, as you know, that culture means preservation. When we preserve a food, we say that it is cultured food. So when values are very refined or aristocratic, we say that something is cultured. And so in this sense, culture after Matthew Arnold, or culture after Renaissance, or say the word culture after the industrial growth in Europe, day by day the word culture got a very different meaning, gathering around it, so that people started considering that culture is something which makes a person high, and a working class person cannot have culture. If we say that somebody is a gentleman, that he must be a cultured one. If someone feels in a particular way, or someone sings kind of a particular song, or someone who knows classical music, or someone who has access to a kind of a painting painted by a big painter, or someone lives in a high class community, or say in a posh area, is a cultured one. Someone who has a good complexion, or someone who has soft hands, or someone who wears different kind of shoes are the cultured people. Or suppose someone speaks in a particular way, or someone who does not use the abusive language, he is cultured. Or someone who can appreciate a particular kind of book, then he is cultured, and the others are not cultured. Someone who listens to folk music is not a cultured one, and someone who listens to the thumris and classical music, or he can enjoy a recitation of some poem, or say he can understand really. I'm not saying that he's able to sing only, or say listen to. He understands what classical music or classical singing is. Or sometimes someone is cultured when we say that he loves art movies, and he particular one is loving or he likes action movies, then he's not cultured. So even in India also, we can understand the exact meaning of culture also, that when we use this word somewhere, we have an aura around us, like somebody is higher than us, or having some privileged position in society. So friends, Raymond Williams started understanding this word culture in a kind of society after World War, where capitalism was rising its head, and there in the Western world, the world was going in a very different direction with structuralism and post-structuralism and postmodernism. So it is very important for us to understand the kind of books Raymond Williams has written, and what are the repercussions or say effects of these books in the world of intelligent people, in the universities, and how cultural studies as a particular genre or a particular field of study or research started or came into being. So friends, his first important book is Culture and Society, published in 1958. It's the first book based on his studies of culture production. He studied the history of industrial capitalism in relation to the press, advertising, education, the new media. His another important book from our exam point of view is The Long Revolution. It was published in 1961. This book brought all these studies together, and we find that in this book he insisted on the importance of struggle for the public ownership and control of communication. This is again very important point, that Raymond Williams studied that how language is deciding somebody's culture, and how language is being imparted to us, and who is controlling that language. So as I said in the starting of this audio, that cultural studies is a kind of deeper studies where we decide, where we try to understand, we try to read, we try to research the factors which control human beings' behavior, language, understanding, and his mental status. And without language, human beings cannot impart things to each other. So Raymond Williams in this book, The Long Revolution, studied that who controls our communication. His another book was it was named Communications. It was published in 1962. That was his first publication, and it was revised in 1974. This book is also very important from exam point of view. And another important book is Television. Its subtitle is Technology and Cultural Form. It came in 1974. Friends, you all know that today, to uh, get things fossilized in our mind, or say to establish a kind of pattern of behavior, dress, fashion, way of talking, fashion, architecture. All these things have been imparted to us in our day-to-day life, either by media. I'm here using the word media in the broad sense, where television and films, and today social media is also one of the important part. So in this book you will find that how technology and culture are interrelated, and how it is changing. The technology is changing the sense of the word culture in the Western world. Another important book is Towards 2000. So here it was a futuristic book, written in 1983, where the writer was talking like, if this is the form of culture in 1983, then what shape it will take when the European people will go towards 2000. Another important book is what I consider is Marxism and Literature. They have already asked a question on this book in NET exam. It was published in 1977. I repeat the name of the book, Marxism and Literature. His critical revision of Marxist thinking about culture and society is presented in this book. Like, what is Marxism? How Marxism is affecting literature, and vice versa. Another important book is Modern Tragedy, 1966. The English novel. Friends, you will be surprised that this writer was immensely read, and he was immensely and very fruitful writer. He had a diverse reading of different fields, and particularly literature. So he has also written dramas and novels, and written about novels also. So his another important book is the English novel Dickens to Lawrence. I'm talking about D.H. Lawrence. It was published in 1970. Another important book is The Country and the City, published in 1973. And another important book is Problems in Materialism and Culture. Friends, this book was published in 1980. Another important book is Writing in Society. It was published in 1984. Apart from all these books, one important book which I think you should have in your library is the book Keywords, published in 1976. Actually, what happened that during his writings of all these books, and particularly his research on culture and society, he repeatedly tried to look into the words which have changed their meaning over time in the history, to understand the word culture itself. So he prepared a number of entries for these words, which increased which found themselves changed in the length of the book, first added as an appendix in Culture and Society, and then later on made a separate book. Friends, I would like to inform you that this book has 109 keywords, and later on 20 more words he added, and the new book was published in 1983. So you can count, like earlier there were 109 entries of the keywords, and then 20 more words were added. So now overall there are 129 words. This is not a neutral review of meanings, he said about this book. This is not a neutral review of meanings. It is an exploration of the vocabulary of a critical area of social and cultural discussion, which has been inherited within precise historical and social conditions, and which has to be made at once conscious and critical, subject to change as well as to continuity. So I would like to say something about this book, Keywords. That a word comes to my mind. For example, just to make you understand, like why this book is important and why it should be there in your library. Let us take the word industry. Friends, you know that industry is used by different people in different ways. Suppose I say I am a man of industry. Now here I'm using the word industry in the sense of my hard work. And you know that industries also means to establish some firm or say factory. How this word gathered this meaning, what was its meaning in Renaissance, and why this meaning is there today. So this keyword means, this book keywords is very important. It makes us understand that how culture was seen earlier and how it metamorphosed by different factors. We are students of English literature, but I cannot say that exactly we are here to cram up the names of the writers, the characters, or say know the plot and the summary of the plot of a novel. We are ultimately going to be the professors who are going to be the the base or the cornerstone of the nation building. So friends, we are going to change the minds of the people in the coming time. So it is very important for us to understand the exact meaning of a particular word, and because we are going to be researchers and you will be becoming guides in the coming time, hundreds, thousands of students will do research under you. So I would like that you just order this book today from Amazon, and try to just if you can't have that much time, then you just ruffle through the pages, thumb through the pages, and just see the kind of entries are there. You can up to, it depends upon your choice, you can underline 10 to 20 words which are very, very common and important. Then you can see that over the centuries how words have changed into the English lexicon. Say okay, so that was my word on the book keywords. Now let us have a very small discussion on what is the exact meaning of culture by Raymond Williams. There are three general categories in the definition of culture. He has divided the word into three categories: the first, the second, and the third. The first is the ideal. You can write in your copies. The first is the ideal. In this category, in which culture is a state or process of human perfection in terms of certain absolutes or universal values. So somebody who talks in an ideal manner were called cultural people, or say people who are cultured, or the things of culture. In the second phase, which he has termed the documentary, in which culture is the body of intellectual and imaginative work. So we can understand that all the kind of books and other things which belong to the area of art comes in this category. The third one is the social, in which culture is a description of a particular way of life which expresses certain meanings and values in art, learning, institutions, and ordinary behavior. So this third is the meaning which I just elaborated in the very first part of my discussion. Apart from that, he has also said in the same article that there is no ideal definition of culture. So we can arguably we can say that as such we cannot define. People will be talking about culture in a different manner. Some would be calling it by some other name or describing in some other way. So the writer himself has accepted this fact that there is no ideal definition of culture. On some other place, he says that culture is a genuine complexity of all these three definitions. I have elaborated these three definitions: the first, the second, and the third, in which the first one is the ideal, the second one is documentary, and the third one is the social. And he says that culture is a genuine complexity of all these three definitions. That's it for Raymond Williams for today. Thank you so much, dear friends.